Imagine being the founder of a successful company, knowing that the best thing to do for the greater good of that company was to fire yourself. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Do Good Show, everyone. My name is Ryan Jones, and I'm your host. Today, we are so excited to have Alex Veach and Ilsa Lercher on the show from Letterpress Communications. They are based in Southwest Virginia. They are a full-service marketing firm, and this conversation is really geared towards Ilsa being the founder and firing herself and hiring Alex as the CEO to run the company. This is something that a lot of founders struggle with, but a lot of them are just not successful in doing so. So Ilsa, she was able to step away from the company, I think last year, a little bit longer than that, and hire Alex to completely take over the company and run it as the CEO. We talk about the processes that she put into place to get there, how she started to make this transition. We talk about my relationship to vacation, which is awful, everyone. I need to fire myself, or at least have a little team to where I can let go a little bit. But this conversation was helpful for me. I hope it's helpful for other founders out there that are thinking about hiring a team or hiring that like first executive level position as a CEO, and how that sort of relationship goes, what boundaries that you should be setting if you are the founder and you have a CEO, how you continue on that team culture that you create as the founder. So we talk about a lot of that kind of stuff. We talk about Letterpress and the story from the early days of Ilsa being a journalist and how she made the transition of starting her company and who helped her along the way. It's a really fruitful conversation, especially if you are a founder and you are trying to either scale your company or you're trying to put processes into place to where people will hire your company to do the work and not yourself to do the work. I'm in that scenario right now. When people hire Do Good Brands to do the work, they're actually hiring me specifically. People work with my company because it's me. And so right now I'm trying to after this conversation, actually, trying to put things into place to where people are hiring Do Good Brands, so I can step away a little bit and go on a 2-week vacation if I want to. That would be nice. That would be really nice. But it's a really fruitful conversation. I really hope you enjoy it. If you haven't clicked subscribe, do that right now. It is free to do it. It doesn't cost you a dime, and it goes a long way. We are trying to get to 7,000 subscribers, and we can do that. If you click that subscribe button, hit that like and comment as well. We really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Ilsa and Alex. Enjoy the show, everyone. Okay, Ilsa and Alex, welcome to the Do Good Show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
It's great to be here, Ryan.
It is so good to have both of you, two awesome women leaders in rural Southwest Virginia, just doing some crazy awesome things in marketing and communications. And so I'm so delighted to have you both here. And Alex, I did want to say thank you for being at CreatorCon this year and doing such a wonderful job in your breakout session, but also setting up the table. And, you had some of your team there. It was great to have you there.
Oh, thank you. We had a great time. Looking forward to next year already.
And I did see Jonathan. I saw him at the Startup Mountain Summit a couple days ago.
Nice.
So that was good to see him. You guys are just hiring a bunch of people right now.
Oh yeah, it's been an interesting year, that's for sure.
Alex is specifically hiring the people because Ilsa fired herself, which we can't wait to hear more about that. Which is one of the reasons why we have you both on today.
I had nothing to do with all the hirings that happened this year, and it was exciting to watch it. I was like, I leave, and Alex hires 3.5 people. It's amazing.
That's great. It's so awesome to see all the good things that you all are doing. So I wanted to just kind of start for the people that don't know who Letterpress is. Ilsa, if you don't mind to just give an overview of Letterpress and maybe what was it like what were you doing before you started Letterpress, and why did you start Letterpress?
Oh, sure. So I was born and raised in rural Southern Virginia, and Farmville was just south of Richmond. And I did the move away, I got married and moved away thing. And then in my late 20s, I came back to the community. I actually finally got my bachelor's degree when I was like 29 years old. Like I was so excited when I finally got my bachelor's degree. It was like the best thing ever. Um, and after that, I became a reporter for the local newspaper. So I was the beat reporter for a county for the paper of record. So everything from pot bust to SOL scores to uh, uh, reservoirs, tax rates, all that fun stuff. Interviewed a school teacher that was 100 years old. Well, she wasn't still teaching, but she was one of the first women to study physics at UVA, and the professor wouldn't even talk to her. I think this was like in the 30s, wouldn't even talk to her until she did better on the quiz than any of the men, and then he started talking to her. So, anyway, I love being a reporter. But I also knew the paper was in trouble, and I was also fairly entrepreneurial, and I was creating a lot of work for my uh, editor and publisher. I had ideas of things to change and do, which they weren't particularly too excited about. So I did a small business development center startup course, an 8-week course while I was still a
Hmm.
reporter, thinking I was going to be a solo PR professional. So I did that course, and I had a friend who had been approached for some help by Greenfront Furniture, was a local large employer in our area, and she sent them to me, and they were our first client. They signed a retainer for like 40 hours a month. And I put my notice into the paper and I asked my parents, I was like, if this fails, can I move in with you guys? Because rent is my biggest expense. And I really wasn't sure about it. Um, so it started primarily because I saw a need and where I was really uncomfortable for me at the time.
Hmm.
So, and turns out Farmville actually needed a marketing company, not just a PR consultant. So people started coming to me and they wanted stories written or websites built. And I would know people
Hmm.
that could do those things or talk to Longwood students that could do those things. So before I knew it, I actually had a marketing agency without ever meaning to start one.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
And so
So,
I'm
yeah.
sure you've like evolved. I mean, you've definitely evolved since you started. But are y'all like your full service, do everything now, right? Ads, you do video production, you do content management,
That's
everything,
right.
right?
We're full service. We're what I call a fractional marketing department for a lot of our clients. Most of our clients just have one or two full-time communications people, or maybe even none. Like a lot of the localities
Hmm.
we work with don't have a full-time communications person. And so we'll come in and we'll augment, we'll bring strategic insight, but then we'll augment based on what they need. They might already have some staff that can write well or have a good photographer, but then we can come in with the videography or the website
Hmm.
development. So we kind of do a lot of that fractional type work. And our focus is primarily community revitalization and economic development in rural communities. So like tourism, workforce recruitment, those
Hmm.
sorts of things. We found that um, bigger firms from larger cities often don't get what is unique about being in a rural community and what's
Yeah.
required. And so we have a unique insight that we can bring to that.
And did you see that immediately as a gap to fulfill, or was that just something you learned?
No, I didn't see that at all. I think when I started, what I saw is that we weren't telling our story well. And I don't even know
Mhm.
back then if story was such a buzzword like it is kind of now.
What
But
year was it back
this
then?
was 10 years ago, so it was 2015.
Okay.
But like there were nonprofits that I was doing reporting on that didn't have websites. And this is only 10 years ago, right? Or things like that, or even like very simple things that organizations could be doing on Facebook they didn't even realize. And what I realized, we're so hard on ourselves in rural communities. We don't
Hmm.
think we're much to look at. We don't like to celebrate our successes.
Hmm.
So I saw the need for us to really celebrate what we are doing that's good. And then that led to one thing after another and actually turned into. But what I just described about rural community economic development and recruitment, that didn't become clear to us till I would say 3 or 4 years ago. Like we worked on
Hmm.
our brand, we were always thinking about how we describe ourselves, but it didn't really become clear until 6 or 7 years down the line, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Alex, this is a question for you now as a CEO, but like what resonated with you most about letterpress when you like sought out to work for ILSA, or like how did that even happen?
Yeah.
If you don't mind
So
elaborating on that.
sure. So Ilsa and I met while I was still the Deputy Director of Community and Economic Development for the town of Marion. My other duties as assigned was Main Street Manager. And so we met at actually the last in-person Main Street retreat before the pandemic. So Ilsa gave a workshop, and then we ran into each other again at a Virginia Municipal League event. So that stood out to me that somebody running a communications firm was attending things in Richmond, like VML. And then the pandemic hit, and we kind of kept up with each other a little bit. The ILSA, they were working on projects to support small businesses on Main Street. So she would call me up and say, "Hey, do you think this would work? Is this something that your Main Street would be interested in?" And then in December of 2020, she called me up and said, "Hey, I know you don't make very much money working for a municipality. You want a side hustle." And so I came on as a creative contractor. And that's something that we have done all along is flex our
Mm-hmm.
capacity and our skill sets with contractors. We currently have about 30 active freelance and small business partners that we work with to really make sure that we're delivering what our clients need. So came on board to do that. And then in 2021, Letterpress had their first $1 million a year and saw quite a bit of growth in that year. And at the end of that year, Elsa said, "Hey, I think we're going to be hiring." So in spring of 2022, I came on full time. And just in that 1 year that I worked with Letterpress, I was so impressed with the different kinds of clients that we were working with, the good that we were doing in different communities all across Virginia and into North Carolina. And the work environment that she had created just made sense and was
Mm-hmm.
like, why aren't people doing this? So it was exciting to come on
Mm-hmm.
in 2022 full time.
That's awesome. And I want to go back to the numbers. You said in 2022 is your first $1 million year.
2021. I'll let Elsa
2021.
elaborate on that.
And yeah, I want to elaborate on that a little bit and like how you were seeking out clients or how they were finding you, or was it just all word of mouth? Like, how did you build it to that? Because that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was it felt really slow. I was just describing this to someone recently. I think our first year, so when I was at the paper, I love to share this just so people kind of know where we started. When I was at the paper, I was making $12 an hour as a reporter. And so when that first client came to me, I had no idea what I was doing. So I just doubled that and I charged them $25 an hour, which I thought was like, I was
You thought you were
really
crushing it.
I was really chuffed about. Like, yeah, it was
Yeah.
exciting. So I think our first year was like 50,000 and I probably had 20,000 in contract work. So within the first year, full year, I had replaced my income with the Herald and probably my benefits too,
Mm-hmm.
or close to that. And then we were like 80,000 and 80,000, and then we doubled 1 year, and then we were at 280 a couple of years, and then we grew like there was like these years of 20 or 30% growth, and then 50% growth, and then like 100% growth, and then 50%. So there was kind of this um, kind of crawl that happened. It
Mm-hmm.
felt slower than it probably was. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it felt scarier because I have an amazing business coach through the Small Business Development Center. And he said, Ilza, success can be more painful than failure. And like having to make that first hire
Mm-hmm.
3 years in was really scary for me. It was a very terrifying thing. But in terms of growing the sales, which is what your question was about, it was really about relationships and letting people know, putting it out there. I was blessed that a couple of our first clients, like Greenfront Furniture, is one of the most well-respected employers in our region. So
Mm-hmm.
having that backing was helpful. And then I had some of my early mentors became real advocates for me. So it was really leveraging that word of mouth and reputation. And then those first couple of years, people were just hiring Ilza. There was no, and people were
Right.
hiring Ilza without any marketing experience, right? Like they knew my stuff at the paper, but I didn't have a portfolio. So it had to be
Sure.
people that just knew that Ilza was going to do whatever it took to make sure it was right and make
Hmm.
sure that they liked it. And that's what they had to trust. And then after 2 or 3 years, we had a portfolio and we started working with people that I didn't know personally, but knew people that we knew, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that organic growth that's really slow, it still bears fruit today in
Hmm.
really slow ways. Alex was down in Danville, was it last year? And we saw our letterpress sticker. We put up this annual impact report with a sticker. Like I think we've seen the letterpress sticker on 2 or 3 cars that we don't know who drives it, right? And like, that's the sign of like, oh shit, like it's a thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's really that really strong reputation is the best. And we did some work with like proposals, and it's because we do localities like bidding on things.
Hmm.
And we've gotten some of those, and some of those have been great. But what we have found, and this is just a pro tip from anyone listening that's smaller, is your win rate for proposals is so small. We don't even go after those anymore unless for an RFP, not a
Yeah. Yeah.
proposal,
Yeah.
but for a request for proposals, unless we know someone's sitting on the other side of the table and we know we could have an advocate. And we probably will reach out to them too and say, hey, we're thinking about applying. Do you think we'll be a good fit? And if we know that they will be
Hmm.
advocating for us on the other side, then it's worth our time and effort. But because we're so small, we don't have like a whole RFP department that can just sit there and churn bids
Yeah.
out. So it really it's all about relationships. It's really all about relationships.
And putting together a proposal, it's not like you do it just like that. It requires a lot of time and intentionality and, you know, a lot of brain power around the table to put something like that together.
I will say because I want whatever I hope this podcast is helpful for other entrepreneurs that are like sitting like where I was 8 years ago or 10 years
Hmm.
ago. Um, The other thing I would love to say is we early on, because I wanted to be flexible, found ways to do packages, so fixed cost packages, but we also started doing these annual retainers. And that was probably the
Hmm.
wisest thing, starting a reputation where we have these annual retainers.
Hmm.
That means we keep growing our clients, but we'll keep a client usually for 4 or 5 or 6 years on average.
Hmm.
And we're growing them and getting to know their networks at the same time. So that also, instead of being project based, the retainers really have helped, I think, with our sales growth as well, and a certain stability
Yeah.
underlying all of it at the same time. So that's a different part. We weren't growing that way on like $5,000, even $50,000 projects. That would have been way too
Hmm.
chaotic. So I,
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add to that. I think the other thing that we have always not been afraid of is to fire ourselves or to let ourselves go from a
Hmm.
client. So we have gained a huge reputation in actually sitting on interview panels for our replacement. Because our goal for somebody is a stable, sustainable process. And if that means having somebody on their team in a
Hmm.
full-time capacity, we're happy for that. So we've incubated salaries just in our retainers with people and then sat in on the interviews for that replacement, helped train that person, and then moved on to bigger projects. So instead of
Hmm.
on like social media management, now we're doing a couple of videos a year or helping with Google ads or something like that. And I think that reputation has been huge for us.
Yeah.
That in the end, we just want to do what's right for our clients, even if that means saying goodbye to us.
Yeah. I have a question too, also about when you hired that first person. Was
Mhm.
it full time, part time? Was it a contractor?
so I had contractors very close from the start, like early
Yeah.
on. And at first, I think we did it based on like individual projects. But eventually it became like here, I think, like for example, my sister was a very early contractor. Marge Swain, who had been was a reporter at the Herald, who I knew and was a great feature story writer, right? And I just had an hourly rate for her, and we'd have work that came in, and we could send it to Marge, right? And I think Marge is
Hmm.
still like, I mean, Marge has been with us the majority of this whole time, writing away. Um, so there was contractors, and then what happened was I got to the point where I was paying contractors almost enough for it to be a full-time person. And I had
Okay.
one contractor that was coming in and doing a lot of freeing up my time, not just creative work, but could help with proposals and could come into client meetings and those sorts of things. And so that's when I started like realizing, okay, I'm going to take the leap. And that's one reason we do profit sharing. is because early on, and I don't mean profit sharing like the technical IRS tax deferred thing. I mean, like we literally are just, it's a bonus pool that's based on our profit that people get to share, they get to benefit in the success of the company. And it's because from early on, I couldn't afford to pay the rate that at that time, we're doing much better now, but at the
Hmm.
time, the rate that someone would expect. But I felt like it was fair for them to benefit if we did well. So that profit sharing was a way to kind of also encourage them, like, and we make this promise, and people who trust and believe us, it does happen. They'll come in and they say they want this, or they want to do these types of things, and I'm saying, look, if you want to work, we can grow the company if I think it's true to achieve that thing. It can't happen today, but give us a year or two and we can get
Hmm.
there. And so almost everyone who's come on board is like a real believer in co-creating this company together, like from the start, which I think is one of the secrets for how I was able to fire myself, because that seed was planted early, like in the first, and like I said, those first couple of hires.
Yeah. And did you have some sort of like vision of what kind of culture that you wanted to create? Like, did you always imagine you would have a big team? Like you're a pretty good sized team now. Uh, but like when you were thinking about the culture and how to like, communicate that with your team and like develop this like you seems like you're a pretty close knit group of people. You seem to be all friends, which I'm sure there's some difficulty in on the inner workings of it. But like talk to me about building your culture for your company. And maybe Alex, you can talk a little bit about that too now as the CEO, how you're sort of continuing on that work.
Alex will have to piggyback in a minute because she found a concept to define our culture recently that I I think I just built what was apparent to me, right? So what seemed to make sense in my Ilza's unique mind, right? So there's a lot of Ilza's fingerprints on it in terms of efficiency, but also like I didn't have the terms for it at the time, but I'm a fan of radical candor, right? And I had some amazing mentors, both that business coach, Michael Duncan, who's based in
Mm-hmm.
Danville, who I mentioned, also had a personal executive coach, who Mimi Weaver is absolutely transformational to me. I'd actually started seeing her just before I started Letterpress, and she's very focused on presence and mindfulness. But like, instead of getting triggered and being in a triggered response, slowing down, instead of
Mm-hmm.
being reactive, being proactive. There's a lot of those things that I just learned from Mimi as I tried to deal with all the stress and anxiety of starting the business that kind of got diffused into the company as it grew. So when I wrote my first business plan with SBDC, $1 million was nowhere on any chart anywhere. And like so I grew up with women who were stay-at-home moms or teachers, like kind of more smaller community with homeschoolers and more conservative. And my dad, I realized after 2 or 3 years, I was making more money than my dad ever had, right? So very like working class. So that was never a thought of growing or even like what shaping culture was. I think I was just in
Mm-hmm.
survival mode, but I was really mindful about it and had good mentors and coaches for myself. And so that making it sane for myself or trying to make it sane for myself helped create a culture that was sane for everyone. And that's just the thing I would say. I think Alex can piggyback on this, but that's my other thing I would say to entrepreneurs is, and this is one reason this will tie back to me stepping away and firing myself, is the founder or the CEO can't be the exception in the company. That's what screws up the culture really bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I expected of myself, I expected of other people, and I wanted to live up to what I expected of other people, and it had to be, but that's where I see things go really wonky in businesses and organizations when the CEO or founder thinks they can get away or do things differently than what they expect from other people. There's a lack
Mm-hmm.
of congruence there that
Mm-hmm.
creates or coherence that makes a lot of issues. So I don't know, Alex, I'll let you speak to the culture that you walked into like
Yeah.
6 years after it was going.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's definitely been built off of the people. So, or very early on, Mimi and Michael were a huge part of it. Lindsay, our COO, was operations manager for a long time. She happens to be a deacon in the Methodist Church and a birth doula. So that adds a nice, interesting layer of calm to what we do.
Mhm.
Also, like in the fractional people that we've brought on, we work with a fractional HR company, Inspiring HR. We've got a fractional CFO. All those people have just aligned with what we do. But I've stumbled into an interesting concept called conscious accountability. I did a executive leadership program at Yale over the summer, and Dr. David Tate and his colleagues wrote a book about conscious accountability, and it fits us to a T. In fact, I have our team reading it right now. We're doing a book club on it. We're going to talk about it. But they just wrote this book in 2022. So now my goal is to unpack how we ended up doing this model that these professors are wanting businesses to do. We just stumbled into it. But a lot of it is that we have a high level of psychological safety. We have a high work ethic. We're a kind of a courageous learning community. And I think part of it too was also the pandemic. So letterpress made remote work actually work. And I think that's a secret on why we all like each other. Ryan, you mentioned that we all seem to get along. I think it's because we don't have to be together all day, every day. We're together virtually all the time,
A good
but
thing.
we get excited when we get to actually see each other in person. So I think that's also been like a little bit of the secret sauce is that we're not all sitting in an office together, but when we are together, we do want to remote work. Not when we remote work together, we have team members who will like find a coffee shop and meet up for the day and sit and work. We started doing an annual company retreat as we started to get bigger and have more people on the team. So bringing everybody together for a couple of days each year intentionally. We always kind of do a service project at the holidays. So, I mean, it's been building, but really building off of the people. So we've taken the best of the people that have that letterpress has encountered and
Mhm.
internalized it.
That's really cool. I love hearing about the team building stuff that you all do. Is that something you do every single month, like some sort of team building exercise with maybe the bigger retreat later in the year?
So we do the bigger retreat once a year. We've started doing some targeted knowledge shares. We've done book clubs together in the past, but a lot of it is just organic. So like people getting together and working in a different city at a coffee shop. People have chose to do that.
Hmm.
So it's cool how it's kind of all come together.
I will say we put intentionality too around infusing the values once we were clear about our values. And we did a fairly simple exercise to find our values, kind of using the traction model early on. But there were some ways that we've used that now when we hire. We have a scorecard that the panel ranks the interviews based, and those questions that we're scoring on are based on what our company values are. Um,
Hmm.
but then even like, are y'all still in, I have to ask Alex, are y'all still doing the shout outs in the weekly project update? See,
Yep. So
that's a built-in weekly moment that is, I think, team building, but it's also based on our values.
Hmm.
yeah,
That's so
yeah.
cool.
We try to get rid of that team meeting because it takes up some non-billable time and people revolted because we thought it was, oh, just this was something that we needed during the pandemic. And when we tried to take it away, people lost their minds. So we still meet every Thursday. And then the summers we do every other Thursday so people could flex some time off over the summer. But we meet every Thursday at 1 o'clock, and the top of that meeting is highlights, wins, and celebrations. And it's just a shout out section for closing out a project or something good that somebody did to help and pitch in on another project. I think we do that every week.
That's cool. There's nothing worse than meeting just to meet.
Yeah, but everybody loves that meeting.
Yeah, my in my previous life, before I became a solopreneur, I think we had a team meeting like every single day, and I managed like 6 people, and I had to do one-on-ones with them every single week. And then I had and then I had my own team meeting that I had to do every day as well. So I had basically 2 team meetings every single day, plus one-on-ones. And I'm like, I've got work to do. Like,
Right.
I know like managing this team is like a part of it, but I've got other things I need to be doing rather than internal meetings all the time.
Well, and here's another thing about culture, to your point, Alex, about the people and it being the mentors I had, and it's also the employees we had. So we, most of the team, the early hire, and even up until probably the last couple of years, the majority of our employees were the primary child care provider in their home, which meant a lot of them were women, not necessarily all, even the men. So that meant they were really interested in flexibility. And I remember one woman came to work with us and said, "Y'all are super heads down. Like y'all get a lot done. Y'all get along, but we don't do a lot of cooler chat, water cooler chat, or things
Mm-hmm.
like that." Because we try to prioritize getting the work done, not clocking in or clocking out. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
parents have to drop their kids off. They can show up at 8:30 or 9 to start working, and then they have to leave at 2:30 to pick their kids up or 3.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like an efficient amount of time. So there's also like just having those early employees be that level of like, we're here to like, we get along, we have fun, but we're here to get the job done. And then we have other lives we want to live. Like our job is not our life. But I think that also created part of that culture that it's I've been learning about this in the classes I'm taking with the MBA program that the company builds its capabilities as it goes along. And eventually, as it gets bigger, those capabilities, those unique parts of the cultures were just built in. And
Mm-hmm.
then we've become more entrenched and more stable in a specific set of things that are a factor of all these little inputs that you never could have calculated at the time, how they were
Mm-hmm.
shaping us to grow, you know? But now they just have, and it's just happened.
That's awesome. So let's switch gears here, about you firing yourself, Elsa. I'm so curious about this. So, for many founders, I feel like it's really hard to let go of the things that they're the thing you created. So tell me like what the hardest part of that was, like you firing yourself and hiring a CEO and totally trying to disconnect yourself. What was the hardest thing about that? And like what prompted you to hire a CEO, and sort of like go into this transition? I know you mentioned your MBA, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, I think if we go back to why it happened, I think perhaps like your term fire yourself is really interesting because I think in some ways I did fire myself. Like I realized that the things I was good at is not what the company needed. And like what the company wanted me to do, like some of the business development stuff, I think I could have just kept on doing. Like there's parts of that I just enjoy and stuff, but there's other things that I started feeling really resentful towards and I
Hmm.
wasn't enjoying. And
Hmm.
I wanted to like chase the next shiny, innovative thing or go try this or do that. And the company needed stability and calm and, processes and systems. And I realized, and then people would need things from me and I wasn't turning them around fast enough. That's just a process of overwhelmed workload. But
Hmm.
besides that, I just realized that what the company needed and what I enjoyed providing weren't aligning anymore at the size that it was at. And I don't know if that was because I wasn't in the weeds as much. There's parts of that I probably still need to suss out, but it just, at the time, it felt very clear. I also had read some good books early on and really had, believed the kind of storyline that the best leader is the one that can leave and the company still functions, right? And I realized like that
Hmm.
was a goal. I decided I wanted to strive for that. Like I wanted to be able to go on a vacation for 2 weeks and contact me, no one contact me. And could I go for a month and no one contact me? And could I build this team? Like the challenge of creating a team that could self-sustain became really attractive to me. So I started the MBA. I decided to apply partially because I wanted to give Alex and Lindsay, who are on the leadership team, room to like actually grow and lead with me being out of the way and me having something else
Hmm.
to focus on, right? So that was the idea. But once I started the MBA, I realized like I didn't want to touch the letterpress. Like I felt even more resentful. And I remember I talked to my business coach and I said, I don't want to look at emails. I don't want to go to this green front meeting. I don't want to do any of it. And he's like, well, do you think Alex can be CEO? And I was like, yes. He's like, well, why don't you just ask her? Like, just shoot your shot. And I was like, I thought I had to wait 2 years. I mean, I immediately felt so much relief. Like, I could just, we could just do it. And I mean, it took 6 months. It took more than 6 months. It took a whole process. Um, but the hardest part, so that's all, that's not telling you the hardest part. That's telling you why I felt compelled to do it.
Hmm.
the hardest part was going back to that capability from the very beginning. Letterpress was me and people just trusting that Ilza was going to get the job done and get it done well, and stepping back and letting someone else do it their way and not be in the weeds. That was really in the couple of months after we made the announcement, but before I was formally out, were really painful. I think for me and for Alex, it was very painful. And our fractional CFO, Aram DeGeneiro, he's amazing, and he brought up that scripture about King David, where it says that one day in battle, King David fought so long and so hard that at the end of the day, he couldn't let go of his sword. And he said sometimes when it's at the end of the day, it's harder to let go than any other time. So Alex actually made like a little spirit stick that had the letterpress logo sticker on it. And like we actually literally had like a handoff of the stick. It was at our annual retreat. I was getting ready to leave for my MBA for an overseas trip to Thailand. So I was going to be gone for 3 weeks. And I was supposed to come back after that and kind of be out of the majority of the day to day. That was kind of the plan. And that night, I totally fell in love with Fleetwood Mac's song Landslide. So if you want to know the state of mind I was in, go listen to Landslide. That's like,
Nice.
I still listen to that song now to this day. Like it's only been a year now and cry. Like I listen to it and I'm just like, it's because it's very much about building your identity around someone or something. So the letting go was hard, but at the same time, I think I was attuned enough with what was causing me frustration and where I wasn't happy that I was able to kind of remove myself. Right now, it's different. And right now, I would say in some ways it's more painful than what it was before. I would not recommend it at the moment. I mean, I know I'm doing the right thing and I know it's good. And this is not as like Alex is doing great, like the company's doing fantastic. But in terms of reshaping your identity, it's a deep and it's a hard and
Yeah.
it's a painful work. And I have supports around me. I have coaches and mentors. And the MBA helps. But thinking about realizing I miss having a thing to focus on where I'm having real impact and that amazing team that's all in the trenches together and pointing in the same. I told Alex like a couple months ago, I had to go into the office. I was on my way to dinner. I ran in I still have a key to the office. It was like the first time I'd been in months. I ran in to grab something and I walked in the office. I just started crying and I just realized like I miss the team. That being part of a team like that, especially if something you've built, I hope I get it again, but I might not. And that's a thing.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, like, what kind of boundaries have you set? Like being the founder and then Alex being the CEO. Like, what is that like?
Alex, why don't I'll let you start from that perspective and how that's gone from like what we thought it was going to be to what it is.
Yeah. So Ilsa mentioned it took a hit. I mean, I think her journey to the shift and transition started several years ago with things like, I want to go on a 2-week vacation. I want to be gone for a month. So some of the transition was good because I was already doing business development work. So we had already transitioned some of those things ahead of this. But the CEO transition, Ilse and I have both listened to a 4-part Freakonomics podcast series on failing. And so we took a piece of that. Lindsay and Ilse and I sat down in her dining room on a Sunday afternoon for about 4 hours and just came up with all the ways this could just go to complete crap. It was like 6 fail points. We spent every week we intentionally met to work on a fail point, to talk through what that fail point was. And some of the things were financial, some things were client related. I mean, just all the different team related, culture related. And it really came down to Ilsa had built such a strong culture. I inherited a triple bottom line when I took over Letterpress. We could jokingly call ourselves reluctant capitalists. We know we need to make money, but we want to make money to be good rural employers. So the majority of our team lives in rural communities. And then also we want to give back to the community. So we're on track this year to give $50,000 in sponsorships and donations on top of some in-kind hours to our community. So,
It's awesome.
and she built a culture that was kind of hard to screw up. So there, there's only so much that I can do. But what it really came down to was meeting intentionally every week, talking through our ideas around things. It really wasn't until right before Ilsa left for Thailand that we had our first true argument about something. But even then, like we still resolved it. It was fine. I do think having that time where Ilsa was gone and she was kind of gone through the holidays as well, took a sabbatical after coming back from Thailand, that was helpful to kind of help with that transition. But it really was our work with Michael Duncan, our SBDC coach. We've been jokingly calling it marriage counseling because it is pretty much that. I mean, we are in partnership together. We have to be able to tell each other when we're upset and show our emotions and use our words instead of just getting mad at each other, which we don't, but it's because we've been intentional about that. And that's the culture that Letterpress has built as well. So we set up some guardrails basically, but we named what Ilsa's position was. She's the non-executive chairman of Letterpress this year. We set that up in January. We set up that quarterly. I would send her, we do a fireside chat after each of our quarterly retreats. And so I send her that slide deck and we have discussion about that. I can come to her with things. She's not supposed to come to me with things. So we set that up as well. And then we sat down again this summer and I said, if you want to find a way to be back interacting with Letterpress in 2026, I need you to come to the annual retreat. And so in the months leading up to August, I would check in and say, hey, how are you feeling? Do you think you'll come to the retreat? She had it on her calendar and it came down to, no, I'm not going to come. So we had another meeting with Michael Duncan and talked through, I was like, I need your owner's draw number for next year so I can start working on budgeting. And we kind of worked out what our annual cadence is going to be. So I'm sure we'll still keep talking with Michael Duncan. He's very helpful in that respect, but we've been building as we go. So we built a solid foundation with those fail points, and then we've just continued in that working way of sitting down with each other when we come up on something that could potentially be an issue. Did that describe it well?
Yeah, and I would just say, I think I have super high standards for my team. I've realized this even just being a part of the MBA program, like what high standards I have for my team. And whether you call it A players or high performance or whatever, I realize I have from early on demanded a lot of, I want to be able to trust my team. And if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And if you say you're going to do it by a timeline, you're going to do it. And if you're not going to, you let me know in advance. And every employee gets like a really stern talking to the first time they miss a deadline without comment. And that is at Letterpress, that I think we have fired at least one person solely on that issue, fired. We do a performance improvement plan and all that stuff. But with an agency, you have so many parts that are dependent on so many other parts. And Ilsa doesn't like surprises is a whole other phrase. So Letterpress is filled with, but in particular, I'm thinking of Alex and Lindsay. And Alex and Lindsay came to the leadership position because they say what they are going to do. I can trust that they're going to bring up issues that they have. They don't surprise me 6 months later because they're upset about something that was said earlier. There's a huge amount of trust there. That's part of the culture, but they have it at an elevated level. And that was a great basis for starting with the CEO. And everything Alex is talking about was that level of trust. And those first couple of months when I was on sabbatical, but kind of came back and I was going to do things, I was like, Alex has it. And she would come back proactively and tell me things I hadn't even asked about or do. And her proactiveness and responsiveness and following through has built such a level of trust that, I think was it Truman who said trust but verify, right? I can still access QuickBooks if I need to, I'm still the owner of the bank account. I have the key to the office, but there are ways we have verification checks and balances in place, even with the fractional CFO being in place and other things. But really that Alex has done an amazing job. and the more trust I have, the more I just wanted to let go. Like the more,
Hmm.
that's why I told Alex, like me not wanting showing up for the annual report is not a negative statement. It's how much I trust how well you're doing. My gut is like, let it go. I mean,
Yeah.
we have more profit this year than we've ever had. Like the ways that we're growing and changing, it's no longer my letterpress, but it's a bigger, better letterpress, right? And it's a
Hmm.
more impactful, positively impactful letterpress. And so once again, I'm continuing to see how would get in the way of that, and how even though I miss the team, it's better to let Alex, and Alex needs autonomy. That's something Alex is very clear that she needs autonomy. So that's something I need to give her. And I don't think I can come back and be engaged in small ways without like getting all my roots down into it again. So
Hmm.
that's my gut has been I need to stay out. Otherwise, I'll end up screwing up with an absolutely exceptional thing.
Was it helpful, or I guess were things a little bit rockier for you before a position was named for you? And like when that happened, did you just have immediate clarity of like, okay, I'm the non, what is it, the non-executive chairman?
Chairman. Yeah.
Of the board. Um, I think so Michael Duncan had actually for a couple of years, okay, I hate all entrepreneurs are going to hate this, but you really should be thinking about what your goals are, and you should be thinking about your exit strategy. Like if your company's successful, and so we would meet like twice a year. And he'd be like, Ilsa, what do you want to do? Do you want to be in letterpress the rest of your life? If you don't want to be with letterpress, where do you want to see? You don't, I think that this question, you just have to hold in your head loosely. And then as you get more information, it cements. But he had dropped that phrase, non-executive chairman of the board, in terms of there are chairmen of the board that actually are involved in the operations, like overseeing the CEO and but like, no, I want to be like out of the data. I want the company to be operating without me. So he had dropped that phrase a few years ago. And so I was able to like pick it up and be like, oh yes, this is like, this resonates. This is what, this is what I want. Yeah.
That's awesome. What was it like for your clients? I'm curious because, like, I was telling Alex before this. So I'm like you probably in 2015 or 2016, whatever, being a solopreneur, very much engaged with clients. Clients are hiring me because it's me. And so what was it like for the client whenever you said like, hey, I'm no longer going to be involved in letterpress. Alex is taking over.
I would say we had started that process like 2 years before, where we had tried to really work. Our account executives also do creative work. We have this weird structure, but I had started even when I and it's hard when you're the founder and also you're the business development person, right? And when you're in a
Mhm.
services company, usually that's the reason a service company can't sell for a lot of money or can't bring in a CEO, because the founder is doing all the sales. And if they stop working, the whole thing's going to fall apart. So I had realized that like I need to come up with a way for the company to be doing sales that's beyond me. And
Mhm.
so once didn't quite fix the problem, was a step in that direction, is I really started working on getting myself out of the weeds of creative direction and everything else, making sure when I did a sale, all the information went in a clear place, and there was a handoff to an account executive. And it took me a couple of years to learn to say to prospects, you'll be working with an account executive, because otherwise they think they're working
Mhm.
with me, right? So I had to first like start saying, you're going to be working with an account executive, right? And sometimes I would know who, and if I knew who it was going to be, I'd try to bring them into the sales meetings.
Mhm.
We'd have that information, we'd do a handoff. I would write them like a couple months later a handwritten note that said, thank you so much for joining, being a part of letterpress.
Mhm.
I know that Alex is going to be an amazing account executive, but here's my business card if you ever need anything. So I had done a lot of work to separate myself from client work. And
Mhm.
then Alex came on and we started some other things to try to get me out of the business development. And I remember the year before I asked her to be CEO, she hired a retainer. She closed a retainer at a higher annual rate than I had ever done in my, like the hourly rate. I was like, holy shit, wait, we can charge that much? And Alex had like done it. And I was like, and so I think like giving her space to do that for our company where it is, it's important for her to be working that sales function. As a company grows, that's like the next kind of funnel point for Alex to work on, is getting herself like I would see it as a great success if Alex works her way out of a job over the next 10
Mhm.
years, right? And we have like another succession. That's just growing and impact and everything. But it's been all that to say, it's been a very slow process. So I feel like when it came to telling clients, we came up with a long list. There were like 5 or 10 I need to tell directly myself before the news went out. We have that first client that signed with me for $25 an hour is still a client. They're absolutely amazing, green fronts. And I had to like go, that was like stressful going to talk to Den, but I'm fairly transparent anyway. And Den was
Mhm.
not, a lot of people were not surprised either. And they
Mhm.
had met Alex, they knew they'd seen me working my way out of the company. So it wasn't incongruous or a big shock that this was happening.
And we really leaned on the team after that. So, there was a handful of people that I needed to tell as well, because they were clients that I had worked with. And then, I still had a few clients that I needed to get off of my
Mhm.
list. So we worked through those. And then the ones that had already kind of worked through, the account executives told them. We were very clear about like I had open time for people if they wanted to talk to me. Nobody actually took me up on that.
Mhm.
But we also said that we threw ourselves 10-year birthday parties this year. But that was
Ooh.
like another chance for people to see us all together, see how things
Mhm.
were operating. And we were very intentional about saying, be on the lookout for opportunities regionally for like, we're coming to you kind of things. Um, but it really, the team took a lot of the announcement piece and
Mhm.
took care of it.
And then team was the biggest stressor at that point in the company that I was far enough out of the weeds with client work that our concern is, are we going to lose team members, right? That was
Mhm.
the bigger. And so one of the wisest things, I think we were going to like let people know at one of those weekly meetings. And I think it was Alex that said, I think you need to talk to every team member one-on-one. So that had to happen like covertly. So I'm used to
Mhm.
being very transparent too. So this was hard, but I
Yeah.
scheduled meetings with absolutely everyone, but like kind of indirectly with everyone or secretly like, oh, Lindsay, you're gonna have a one-on-one with this person. Ilsa's gonna slip in at the beginning to like share her
Mhm.
news with that person, like to make sure they all heard it from me, had time to process. But that announcement to the team, because that was the real at that point with because of our annual retainers and other things like that,
Mhm.
the team issue was the biggest one I think that we really tried to nurture and be aware of. And that went, Alex did fantastic. I mean that went really well as well.
Yeah.
It
We
seems
also
like,
elevated
go ahead.
Lindsay, our operations manager, to COO at the same time. And I think that was a wise decision too, because it helped set up kind of a new structure and set expectations well for who people would be working with.
Yeah.
It seems like that account executive role was really crucial. And instead of a client hiring Ilsa, you're now hiring Letterpress.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I guess that's like been your goal the whole time. How do they not hire Ilsa? And how do they hire Letterpress? And what's the communication strategy around
Yep.
that internally to make that happen?
Yeah. And I
Because
still
that
follow. Oh, go ahead,
I
Elsa.
was gonna say that is scalable. Like we're still a time-based, even if we're doing projects or something like that, we're very much still time-based commodity on some level, not a commodity, but we're time-based, we're selling time. But we can grow a culture and hire and get to 40 account executives if we want. I'm not saying that, but I'm just like, we can hire that way, but I just had
Mhm.
hugely finite time. I think so. I just seemed apparent. Sorry, Alex, you were
Yeah,
saying.
no, it's okay. And we've expanded on what Elsa was talking about with during the sales process. Like I'm talking about our team. I talk about where we're based out of. We have offices and we were founded in Farmville. We have an office in Marion now. We have a working with letterpress document that we send out to new clients that really kind of sets expectations about how they'll work with us when a statement of work gets signed. I respond back, introducing them to their project lead, to their account executive. I introduce them to Lindsay, and I even said like you'll see Lindsay's name most often when it comes to invoicing. We have brought on a third member of the leadership team, Jen, who's our director of community success. So I introduce Jen and say, Jen may be checking in on your project from time to time, and the three of us together review all of our projects and work with all of our clients on a high level. So we're all three involved, and that's set up a nice Jen, it set up a nice hierarchy too. So if something does go wrong, they have Jen and then they have Lindsay and then there's me. So we're continuing to work on how do we set up stable processes. And that is one of them. The farther removed I can be from the day to day of a client's work, the better.
Yeah. And I think a lot of startups that intend on exiting don't sometimes have all of these process in place to make it easier to exit.
Yeah.
And it's really smart that you all have done that. And really shout out to the Small Business Development Center for being by your side and making these decisions. I was telling Alex before, like that is the perfect situation for the Small Business Development Center.
Yeah, it's just right. And I would say too, in terms of creating those, the biggest tip I would give, and actually Alex has it as a goal for her for, is it next year to do 2 weeks or is it next year 4 weeks? I can't remember.
So by the end of this year, I will have taken 4 1 week vacations. Almost. There was a couple that were just a few days shy. With the idea that I'm going to work towards taking at least 2 2 week vacations. Although I'm really liking this idea, we've also figured out that that helps with business development processes. So I'm kind of thinking next year is 1 vacation a quarter to give us like a real cadence to our business development. Yeah, the goal is to take 2 2 week vacation.
Well, and the reason I would encourage entrepreneurs we get praise for our hustle and working hard and grit, and that's all important. But often you end up spending time on stuff that you shouldn't be spent. It's stupid work instead
Yeah.
of smart work.
It's a good
And
way to
so,
put it. Yeah.
yeah, taking the 2 weeks, 2 weeks in particular, is a great way to see where your company can't exist without you. And if you like even just did that once a year, did a 2 week vacation and then found out, okay, where are the holes? Where are the issues? Like my last 2 week vacation before we made this transition, I got one phone call from Lindsay. It had something to do with my own IRS tax return, something that had to do. It's like but that was like, so in terms of like thinking about how to build processes and systems, what you have to do if you're going to get yourself out of the weeds, but you're still growing, is build processes and systems and clarity to resolve that. So I feel like it's a very natural way to discover where you need to focus your next set of processes and systems. Is what's the biggest fire that happened while I was out, and how do we have it so next time I go on vacation, that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
This will be a very selfish question to ask of me because it's for myself, but also to help other solopreneurs out there. But like my relationship to vacation is pure shit. Like it is awful. Even when I go like on vacation, I'm still working several hours during the day doing something because I'm very afraid of losing the clients that I have. So I'm very curious, Ilsa, like back in the day when you were a solopreneur, like what was your relationship to vacation and how did you like overcome this like fear of just like letting go? And like what were those client conversations like of like, hey, I need to take a week off and I'm
Yeah.
still going to bill you anyways.
It's, yeah, it sucked. I'm right there with you in time. I mean, just forget vacation. Let's just talk about sleep. Like
Yeah.
there's a solid 3 or 4 years in there where I was working 50 or 60 hours. I would work, I would come home. Thankfully, I was dating a workaholic boyfriend, so he wasn't expecting much from me. I would like, and we wouldn't see each other during the week anyway, right? I'd come home, I'd have dinner, I'd curl up on the floor and cry in the bathroom for like 30 minutes, take my bath or shower, work 2 more hours, and then go to bed, right? And like that was just 10, 11-hour days. And that Mimi, my coach, with work around taking care of myself and what do I need to feel ease? Am I eating? Am I sleeping? Have I moved my body recently? Like really basic self-care. One starts to do that. But two, from early on, I had a goal of having 1 day a week with no work, like kind of like a Sabbath concept. And then it felt like it was easy from there, not easy, but and it didn't always happen. But if I could do that like 3 days a week, I could start growing to the point where, okay, let me do this 2 or 3 days in a row. And I'll just say this in terms of like actual tips. One, set expectations. So let people know a month in advance, like, hey, I'm taking, and people will be excited for you. So one, like, just let them know. Don't be ashamed that you're taking vacation. Just give them a heads up. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
say, no, hey, it's Alex likes to plan everything a year in advance. So not a year in advance, but she likes to have her year. That's one amazing and positive change she's made at Letterpress is like she's laid out the year calendar, right? So Alex could probably contact our clients and say, just not for her, but like the A's could say, look, just so you know, I'm taking a vacation at the end of July and one the beginning of September. I'm actually talking about doing a consulting gig right now. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about taking a month off in September. This is for next September. Would that be an issue for you? Right. So they
Mm-hmm.
already, so one, just setting, and then two, the email out of office. Just say, I'm on vacation. I can't. And what I used to do for years, which made me feel better and worked really well, is do that. I'm on vacation. I'd given the heads up already, so they weren't surprised. You could even send everyone an email. Put up an out of office and say, this is an emergency. You can text me at.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they have to decide whether it's worth bothering you or not, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And then the other tip I'll give on that is I set a 2-day buffer on my out of office. So if you're going to be gone Monday through Wednesday, say you're not checking your emails to the next Monday. And then
Mm-hmm.
everyone will be pleasantly surprised, hopefully, when you get back to them sooner than they were expecting. So I always
Mm-hmm.
add buffer to my out of office too. I don't know. So I think there's like that forward communication that I
Mm-hmm.
would,
Yeah.
yeah, recommend.
Did you get any pushback from any of your retainer clients?
If you do, you don't want them.
Okay.
I,
That's good
you don't
advice.
want that type of client that doesn't want you taking a vacation. So I would say that's the other thing you kind of alluded to, but be comfortable. The term you talked about, I'm fired myself. I started using the term firing clients, and I
Mm-hmm.
rarely actually fire clients. As one client, we
Mm-hmm.
actually, well, I think they were firing us too, but like they had an executive come in and literally yell at my team on a Zoom call. And I had to reach
Ugh.
out to them and say, like, no, this isn't the type of environment we work in. Like, but you you want to save your time and energy for your best clients who support you and refer you to other people and give you the type of work
Mm-hmm.
you want, right? And you want to not spend your time on clients that would care about that. So I would not, I you're just reminding me of a whole set of other things in terms of be picky about your, like, keep going after your best
Mm-hmm.
clients, and you'll find your best clients and you'll kind of weed out the rest or raise your rates. The more you charge, the better your clients are too. I'll tell you that. The clients you charge the least are usually the fussiest and most challenging clients. I don't know if you've experienced this.
If you're listening to this, I'm upping my rates.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I want to piggyback real quick, Ryan, and give a tangible next step for you around vacation. A lot of our solopreneur friends have adopted this. We close between Christmas and New Year's. We state that. I've started putting it on proposals in the timeline, like a little note that letterpress offices are closed between Christmas and New Year's. And we will start adding it to here in a couple of weeks. We'll start adding it to our email signatures. But I've had multiple solopreneurs that we work with adopt this. And just by putting it in your email signature, setting expectations well, it's also a time where we know not a lot of people are working. So there's not a lot of heartburn there.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to give you that as like, if you wanted to take an actual like next step, it's coming up. Now's the perfect time to make that decision,
Love
start
that.
letting people know. And we've never had anybody be upset about that. I mean, we're a big team, so we do have emergency out of office folks. Like we have a
Mm-hmm.
whole process for being out of the office. Of course, we have a process. We have a process for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But just that one thing, just by starting to put it in proposals, people, and now it's a thing. They know that that's what we do.
Okay. So when you before you sign a retainer client, do you have that conversation about vacation with them before you sign on with them? Like when you were a solo, now it's probably
Yeah,
obviously different because you have a team of people that continue operation. But is that something you ever tried or did?
I don't think, um, I don't think I did that. I do think I was very clear on like just creating standards, like of response time, like even like I think for a long time I had a thing on my email that says expect a 48-hour response. Like I've worked really hard for people not to expect same day response via email from me. It just doesn't work well for me
Mm-hmm.
for them. Um, But I think there's yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the clarity and just imagine if you were an employee, you would be asking these things and stating these things. And as an entrepreneur, we're entrepreneurs to create freedom, right? For ourselves, freedom of financial freedom, freedom of our time. And so I think it's part of the onus of an entrepreneur is to be really clear about the freedom they want up front. And to your
Mm-hmm.
point, putting in the contract or how are we actually in the working with letterpress document, there's some pretty strong language there about things we will and will not do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're setting our own standards. So, and the more you're clear about that, the more you'll attract the clients that you, I mean, I think we don't I think very early on we did no Friday meetings. And so like I did a lot of time blocking. Like I don't do Friday meetings. I would go sit and do invoicing instead or other things. But like and that can be really clear up front. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
I say Fridays for my business operations work, or you don't even have to tell them why, right? Like
Yeah.
I do think that since we get so desperate, right? We think,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm gonna lose them or I'm not gonna get
Uh-huh.
them. But if they're lost that easy, do we really want them? And I know it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like that, especially when you're trying to pay rent.
Yeah.
But I think it also helps when you've lost a couple of big clients. Like
Yeah.
and you've realized, oh, I can survive, or oh, I'm better off. That was a huge painful client and they're gone and I feel happier already,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think yeah, that can be helpful too.
Yeah. Well, I know you have a hard stop here pretty soon. I've got just a couple more things here. Maybe I can do this as a two-part question to wrap up. But what's been the most rewarding part of you firing yourself and watching Alex and the team just like take things off and just like growing the team? Things are looking good, business is good. And then have you taken the time and space to think about like what's next? Do you have ambitions of starting new companies? Do you want to invest into companies? Do you want to acquire businesses that are already operating and turnkey? Do you just want to like do what you're doing now? Maybe get your doctorate after you get your MBA. Who knows? But
Um, yeah, I I think it's so gratifying to see letterpress like exist on its own in the world. So these birthday parties have been great, and we're in Danville. And in Danville, I probably knew half the people there, but the team knew the other people there and were
mm-hmm,
welcoming them and connecting with them. And they were clients that I didn't know. And that just felt really good and really powerful to see. I've spent years going down there and getting to know people and building reputation, but for the team to pick that up and take that on, it does feel like my kid has gone to college. Like,
mm-hmm,
it's on its own two legs, it's doing its own thing, and it's partially based on what I did, but now it's very much just doing it by its own merits. So that just
mm-hmm,
feels um it's also gratifying to see Alex and Lindsay and Jen, but they're the ones I see up close the most, like stepping into new levels of leadership and ownership of their lives and how they're creating their own, like they're being entrepreneurial in their own ways that they couldn't before. So
mm-hmm,
that's really beautiful. In terms of what's next, the MBA has been a lot of fun. I've met amazing people at Duke, like they're great people, and I've got to travel around the world, so that's been exciting. Um, I still second guess I have like a fairly strong internal critic, which means my internal confidence is pretty low, which also explains why letterpress's rigor is so high and all these things. Um, so the MBA has been good for validation for me, right?
mm-hmm,
In addition to letterpress. Um, in terms of what's next, I'm really intrigued around our baby boomer business owners in rural communities and how they're going to do succession planning. So that's
mm-hmm,
one thing I'm intrigued is thinking about. We have these small mom and pop shops that are making
mm-hmm,
good money, enough money for them to maybe have a house in the Outer Banks or Florida
mm-hmm,
or someone else, but not enough that an ETA fund, an entrepreneurship through acquisition fund wants to come and buy them. And like,
mm-hmm,
what's going to happen to those businesses? I think that's really, there's a couple of businesses in my community that I've been talking to and kind of coaching and learning from and those sorts of things. Um, I'm also really intrigued. I have some business venture ideas, but right now I don't think I'm starting a business and those solopreneurs out there, it is painful, hard work. And I am not, as my fractional CFO said, I'm not interested in another greenfield project right now. Like beating my head against that brick wall and like stepping back now and not having to work because I have a successful company, you would think I would very easily say it was worth it.
Hmm.
I'm still not totally sure it was worth it. So to all the entrepreneurs out there, I say take care of yourself. Like take care of yourself. You can't get your time back. You can't get your health back. Like do this, but to your point, Ryan, let people know you're going on vacations. Raise your standards.
I'm
Stop
doing it.
working at 5. Do
I'm
like
doing
it's
it.
not worth it. Your life is now. It's not 10 years from now, right? And so some of the stuff I did was not worth what I have now, if that makes sense, because I can't get it back.
Yeah.
So that being said, currently, the only way I'd start something new is like with a couple of partners that I was really excited to start something with together, right? But
Hmm.
not on my own
Yeah.
end. That's not gonna. And I might just get a job. I don't know. I realized like that I'm rested. I'm ready to do something. I need to do something to keep my focus. So who knows what it's gonna be? It'll be as exciting and interesting to me as everyone else, I'm sure.
And I guess, Alex, another part to that question would be, what's the future for Letterpress now that you're at the helm?
Yeah. So we've been talking about what some expanded services might look like for us. And kind of as Ilsa's been on that journey talking about businesses that we may be losing. I've kind of piggybacked on that and been thinking about what services in our communities we might be losing that are important to our clients. And one of those is grant writing. So we've been dipping our toe in grant writing mostly for our tourism clients, but we're working through what that looks like as a standard letterpress service because we know capacity is very tight for our clients and for our communities. So how can we not just write grants and get dollars coming in, but how can we support the management of grants? So we've been kind of practicing what that looks like. You mentioned some new team members. We've got new team members here in Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee. So I expect our service footprint to continue to grow in this area. And Ilsa mentioned Danville, Martinsville, Henry County. That's become a huge area for us. So I think eventually we'll have to have a team member in that area. So we'll see what that looks like. And then continuing to explore our culture. You've heard that we've really set some strong business practices, and I want to really set cultural practices to back those business practices up.
Well, guys, this has been such a pleasure talking to you both about this way of being a founder and kind of hiring a CEO. I think it's such an interesting topic that needs to be talked about more. I think there's a lot of startups out there that don't really think about this. Like, what's the next step in this process of being a founder and growing the company? So I just love what you all are doing, and keep it up. I mean, keep changing the world. You are doing great.
Oh, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. It's been great chatting today.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wait, I gotta do like the
Oh, that's the new heart. I don't know how to do the new
yeah,
heart.
the Gen Alpha.
is that it?
Yeah.
Am I doing it?
it.
Okay. We did it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye.
See ya.